Matt Loughlin and Chico Resch from Boston, the final post-game of the regular season. And unfortunately, it was one in which the Devils didn't provide us with a lot of things on the positive side to talk about, Chico.
Oh, no, Matty. I mean, when you have a start like that, it's pretty tough to come back against anybody. And when you're playing one of the best goalies in the league, Swayman, who's hungry to finish the season, imagine with a shutout, that really helps your confidence going into the playoffs. So, yeah, Devils were up against it when they couldn't play with any kind of semblance of defense in that first period.
And with the victory tonight, Boston clinches the first wild card position in the East. They'll open up the playoffs against Buffalo this weekend. So they did have something to play for. They were at home, and they really took it to the Devils as we check out some highlights of this one. And honestly, this game was determined in the first period, and in the first minute, Boston scored the only goal that they would need. So Boston's made a change. Here's a pass in front. They score. This a direct result of not being able to clear the puck. David Pastrnak picked up the assist on the Geeky goal, and for Pastrnak, his 100th point of the season. 71st assist for Pastrnak, 39th goal for Morgan Geeky. Fraser Minton with the secondary assist. And 53 seconds in, Boston is off to the races, but there was no really change in the Devils' play the rest of the way in that first period.
That wasn't a wake-up call, was it?
No, it was not. It came as the Devils couldn't get the puck out of their zone. They had a couple of chances to do so. They just couldn't do it, and it's not like I don't know if Boston was more determined or the Devils just less determined tonight, but they were beaten to the puck and couldn't clear it, couldn't even kick it out, just do anything to relieve some of the pressure. And Boston said thank you very much, and they took the 1-0 lead, and it stayed that way, but not for very long before Boston jumped out to a 2-0 edge. Here's a pass in front, they score. Kastelik makes it 2-0. Pass out of the corner, and the Bruins jump out in front by 2 in the first 6:14. Kastelik's 11th of the season. Tanner Jeannot with a helper along with Sean Corrali. And, Chico, we heard you in the background there, frustrated because there was bad coverage, 2 goals with guys open 6-8 feet away.
Well, that's it, Matty. I know it's the last game, but so you just shut it down. I don't know how they were feeling physically, but I got to tell you, their brains were not functioning like we've seen them earlier this year, and I'm not going to apologize for that. You cannot play that loosey-goosey in the low slot as the Devils did and expect anything but disaster, and now they're down 2-0.
And Boston well on its way to the victory, but the first period had more time to run. Nico Dawes getting the start in goal, and things settled down only a little bit. I mean, Boston was the better team, although the Devils had some chances, but not nearly as good as Boston's.
But how many times have we said this year, okay, Devils didn't start well. If they scored a goal, it would give everybody hope and confidence. But if you don't score, it just weighs you down more and more and more. And that's what we saw in the first period, Devils not being able to get a goal.
And you start to think, oh, here we go again.
Yep.
We're in for one, and the Devils certainly have had enough one-goal games, not one-goal differences, just scoring one goal. And we know it's true. They're among the lowest-scoring teams in the National Hockey League, and 2-0 deficit is mighty big indeed. But Boston didn't care about that. What they did care about was winning this last home game of the regular season, and Mark Kastelik had a good period, good game. Along the near side wall. Challenged by Jack and then Siegenthaler, and Dougie Hamilton knocks Jeannot down in front. The crowd wanted a penalty, but none is called. Jack turns the puck over. Lohrei with it. Here's Kastelik. He scores. Oh, a turnover, and it's 3-0. Kastelik with his fourth 2-goal game of his career, both coming in the first period. Corrali and Lohrei with the assists, and that line had a pretty good night for Marco Sturm's crew.
Yeah, they did, and I'm happy for the fourth liners. They don't get to be in the limelight much, but as you're just describing here, Matty, in this first period, they were probably the best line on the ice for either team.
Led 3-0 with the goal at 17:42, but the Devils couldn't get out of the period without another goal being scored. We will call this the play of the game. Brought to you by Prudential, the Devils' official financial services partner. Shot off a draw, the rebound, they score! The Devils had iced the puck. The face-off was in their end, and that goal came from about 4 feet out, and it's 4-0. As it was scored by Victor Arvids in his 25th. Less than 7 seconds to go in the period. Pavel Zacha, who celebrated a milestone day, didn't he?
Yeah, he had twins. He and Gabby, his wife. And then, you know what, Maddie, when there was whatever seconds were left, I thought, I'll just talk over the play. They're not going to score. Wasn't going to do that. But I thought, Arvidsson's all alone on the back door with, what was there, 10 seconds or?
Less than 7.
Yeah, I mean... But that summed up, probably that goal summed up the Devils' whole first period, which was one of the worst they've had all year.
And they are down 4-0 after 1. And that, again, was the play of the game brought to you by Prudential, the Devils' official financial services partner, not because it was a positive event from a Devils standpoint, but because it put a capper on the scoring, and really that was it. The Devils lose by a score of 4-0, and now they're left to rebuild. While we have a moment, why don't we check in with our good friends at MSG Network, speaking with Jesper Bratt.
Come to a close, but when you kind of reflect on the whole season, a lot of peaks and valleys for your group. When you're going into the offseason, what are maybe some of those biggest lessons and takeaways that you're going to bring with you?
Yeah, I mean, obviously now it's pretty early now after a game like this just to go in and start reflecting. And I mean, normally that comes after a few days when you start and kind of wind down a little bit. You look into all the things, but I mean, obviously some key injuries were obviously part of it. Our consistency to just battle through games and win games, even when we didn't have our A game. I think our D zone game probably weren't probably as good as we wanted it to be, especially with some guys missing. So. There's probably a lot that is probably going to come more clear in the next couple of days.
Just wanted to get your honest opinion. You know, you're a pro. You've been with this team for a long time. When you see when you mention some of those things, how do you channel maybe some of those downfalls into motivation going into the off season?
Yeah, I think that's the way to do it. I mean, before I ever look at a whole team's performance, I obviously look myself in the mirror and see that what was good for me and what was needs to be a lot better, and then I take responsibility for my actions and for the way I play, and obviously can come up with some things that I know that I need to work a lot more on to help the team to get better. And I mean, that's the way I take it. I take this as big motivation to have the summer that I need to have to make sure that I'm prepared to be a lot better next year.
Well, Bratter, it's just when I hear how you talk about that, it's just going into the off season, wanting to be better. And I think, you know, all the players that I've played with and teams I've been on, it takes a season like this of real disappointment, right? You guys come in, and we were talking to Jack earlier about the expectations were so high. You guys started off, you get an 8-game winning streak. It's human nature to think, oh wow, like this is the season we're going to do some damage. And so again, I think now it's your 9th season. Can you say, hey, this is really a season that it hurt to not make the playoffs?
Yeah, for sure. I think this year probably hurt a little more than any other year that I've been in this situation, just because I know the group we have, the guys we have on the team, and the expectations going into this year with all of the guys. That this one definitely stings more than the other years, and now it's just up to us as a group to how we're going to handle it. So I think that starts with my own mindset as a leader to just make sure I can do everything I can to come in a better way next year.
Well, I love hearing that, because the season before we went to the Stanley Cup Finals, it was awful. It wasn't a good season, and that burn that's in the belly, you need to feel it. And so knowing that, how encouraged were you to see just the way you guys did finish this season? Because as we said to Jack earlier too, other teams could just lay down and say, you know, the season's over, we're not going to make it. We have to win 19 straight or whatever it's going to be. We didn't see that. We saw resilience. We saw, you know, that character we want to see. How proud were you of the guys, how you finished?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it now after the game too, and even coming back from the Olympics, we knew we were in a tough spot. We knew we were going to have to climb a a pretty big hill to get it done. But I think that even because of that, we came together as a group. We won some important games. We won some really tough games against some really good teams, and we just show what kind of team we are. Then, so obviously that was the good side of it. Then maybe we didn't do it consistently enough, and we didn't do it for 82 games. And I think that's just going to be that learning curve. But yeah, like you said, it's definitely stinks a little more this one than before. And if we take it the right way, we can make this into something really good.
All right, thanks, Brader.
Thanks, Brader.
Jesper Bratt speaking with our good friends Bryce Salvador and Rachel Herzog on MSG Networks. And you could hear, Chico, the disappointment in his voice. You could hear his determination to do something over the summer to improve his game. I just don't know if we know why it happened.
No, and he like the one thing he said, it's just too early to process it all. But he's the type of guy that will try to figure out how he can do some things differently. But, I mean, he and Jack were pretty magical at times, Matty. And I don't know what more they can do. Yeah, he didn't have the goal-scoring year perhaps he wanted. And he might – I know he's going to work a lot on that in-tight stuff where you score goals from, like Boston tonight scored 4 of them from right down low in the slot. But I don't worry about Jesper. He'll think, he'll come, he'll be ready to go next year. But he's going to need a lot of other guys bringing something special as well.
The line of Hughes, Bratt, and Brown, obviously not a point tonight, but Jack Hughes finished with 39 points in his last 25 games. Jesper Bratt, 30 points in his last 25, and Connor Brown had 21 in his last 25 games. So they were able to get a little magic, particularly those two, Bratt and Hughes, and they'll be cornerstones moving forward for the New Jersey Devils. Jack Hughes did speak with both Bryce and Rachel, and we'll play that interview back to you now.
Jack, first of all, not the way you would want the season to kind of come to an end here. Just wanted to give you an opportunity to share your initial thoughts digesting this season, especially now you've had a little bit of time over these last few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, pretty bad season, right? As an organization, as a team. So frustrating, but, we are where we are for a reason. So we got to get better this summer and come back and be ready to rock for next year.
Sal and I were just talking about maybe the expectations your group had going into this season. Last year you made the playoffs, you come up short here. When you reflect on it, what are some of the key things that maybe fell by the wayside that wasn't necessarily the case last year?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, even last year we snuck in, right? So it's not like we were a wagon last year and we it's just a frustrating year, and get off to a good start, and then obviously things happen, and then wheels kind of fall off. So we play 82 games for a reason, right? And the teams that are in the playoffs for a reason, and the teams that aren't in the playoffs aren't in the playoffs for a reason. So we're one of those teams that we have to look in the mirror and really assess ourselves as individuals and as an organization, and as a team. So should definitely be a lot of motivation going into the summer for a lot of people, and I mean it is an exciting opportunity though. You have a bad year like this, you can have a great summer and turn it around and come in and be a hungry group. So that's what we need to do.
Well, Jack, that's what I really appreciate you over your career, is that just the authenticity and the reflection on what you see and what the team's going through. How much did you appreciate the way the guys handled the last stretch of hockey coming out of Olympic break? Because some teams I've been on, they just roll over, but that was not the case. Obviously you had a big impact on that, but everyone wanted to make sure that they were going to finish strong.
For sure. I mean, listen, I think it was definitely 25 games, right? So over those 25 games, I think we had a lot of good games. Obviously we had some bad games in the mix, but at the end of the day, like we were way out of it, at the Olympic break. So we did a good job as a group, just trying to play hard, trying to, be prideful in the New Jersey Devils, and, try to win some hockey games and beat some good teams. Obviously a bunch of bad nights in there too, but like I said, I mean, it's a bad year, but I do think, we got a bunch of good players in there, and I think we should just go into the summer and be hungry, be upset about how the year went, and come in refreshed and just a motivated group. But yeah, I mean, you can, like you said, you can fold those last 25 games. I think we did a good job of more nights than not, just coming in, competing, and trying to win hockey games.
Well, just last one for you here, and again, now I look at the expectations what Rachel talked about, and since you've been here, I would say this was a season where the expectations were probably the highest in terms of where you guys were at, some of the moves have been made, all the pieces come in, and do you take this also as a moment inside the locker room now to say, hey, when the expectations are there, we understand there might be some rough patches. We got to find a way to dig deep now and get through that path. And forget about the injuries aside, but just have that mentality. Is this a season you learned about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a maturing process as a group. Just every single team deals with injuries, right? How can you find a way to still win hockey games? Obviously, frustrates me the most because I'm the guy missing a lot of hockey right now. I want to be on the ice helping my team win, and I think we're a pretty good team when we're fully healthy, but obviously everyone in the league thinks the same of themselves. So it's more just as a group we got to find a way that to win hockey games no matter what the circumstances is, and try to win hockey games different ways. Some nights you're going to rely on your power play, some nights you can grind wins out, some nights you can just explode offensively. So yeah, like big expectations this year. Obviously we fail. At the end of the day, there's only one team that's going to win the cup, right? So everyone else is going to fail on their goal. But just as a group, we need to mature, get better over the summer, and just, come in hungry next year.
Well, again, just sincerely appreciate just your approach at things. It's evident. And last thing I'll just say, again, I was pointing out to the fan base, like, this is game 82, right? On the ice in the morning skate, you could have been the first guy off the ice, but yet I see you out there.
All right, we go from Jack Hughes to Nico Hischier.
Games as well.
Well, we've talked to Brader now and Jack and talking about the expectations. And, going into the Olympic break, things were looking a little bleak. But they were talking about the pride that they had for the group to really push to the end here. Is this team that we saw post-Olympics a good implication of or indication of what this team is capable of if it is consistent?
Yes, I mean, for sure. I think we've showed what kind of team we can be. Earlier in the year, after Olympics, a couple of games, and it's just about, like you said, about that consistency and try not to have like a good game and then a bad game. Just have a game that gives ourselves a chance to win a hockey game, and just try to do that as many times as possible.
Well, Nico, obviously the season was very frustrating, and I asked both Jack and Brad, and I'd like to get your perspective on this. Just when you have a season like this where the expectations are there, this is your 9th year, and I would assume, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but this one hurts the most in terms of you're coming in, you're thinking that you guys are going to go into the playoffs, you're going to do some damage, and then you do hit a hiccup. What does that do for the team to understand, hey, this is a moment now we really got to grow from and understand it can't happen again next season?
It's big. I think, like you said, I'm sure the other guys don't like where we're at too, and we understand we're not getting younger either, and it sucks. It sucks to be out of the playoffs. Obviously, the ultimate goal is for me winning a cup in New Jersey, and we are not giving ourselves a chance this year. So it's definitely frustrated, but at the same time should be a big motivator for summer coming up, working hard and come back really hungry and to have a great season there.
And the last one for you, just, build off what Rachel said about the last stretch here. How was it important for you to see as the captain that nobody quit? Everybody said, you know what, we gotta find a way to at least individually hit some milestones. And so I guess that must have felt really good for you to see the way the team responded.
Yeah, I want to have a team that never quits, and that's should never happen. So obviously it's good to see that, and but I think we're all competitors. So if you're here and if you're checked out too early, then you shouldn't be here. So it's good to see that we still have a group with guys with character and compete, and like you said, not trying to quit.
Thank you, Nico. Good luck here in the off.
And that is Rachel Herzog and Bryce Salvador speaking with the captain, Nico Hischier. Previously, Chico, you heard from Jack Hughes. He used the word fail. Nico talked about how this team's kind of getting older now. I mean, it'll be 10 years in the league for he and Jesper Bratt next year.
Well, yeah, and they're all talking about getting fired up for next year. Well, you know the way you do that, Maddie? There's some changes got to be made in the summer. Then players get fired up. I'm just saying you got to say all the right things. But I know as a player, you have to get a couple of new players that you think, okay, that's what's going to be different. You know, the guys that I don't think anybody quit. We talked about that a lot, Maddie. They try. They're not just sloughing off mentally. Maybe I don't know what happened tonight because they were not in the game early enough. But to come back next year and say we're going to be better, we're really fired up. There's got to be some changes, and that's what we're all looking at now.
Yeah, and I agree. We're also looking at some other tea leaves, if you will, and I don't think there's any kind of an issue, but Nico can sign a contract extension. Next year will be his last year under his current contract. He can sign one as of July 1st, and I know he wants to be back. He has said that. I'm sure whoever takes charge of the hockey operations department will make it a point of emphasis to re-sign their captain, but he's going to want to see that changes are made as well, isn't he?
Absolutely. I mean, that's in today's hockey world, folks. It's not like it was 30 years ago. You were loyal to your team, and I'm going to stay with them regardless. And I don't blame players. Connor McDavid, the greatest player, you're seeing that in Edmonton. They're saying, I got to see that you are helping me. I'm just saying that's every player reach my goal, which is to win the Stanley Cup. So that's you're right. That's going to be a factor for a lot of guys next year. And I mean, it can be done. I look at Boston. They had 3 or 4 overachievers that they didn't expect this year, and that's put them in the playoffs. But there has to be some of those players coming the Devils' way sometime during the summer.
Yeah, and collectively, the Devils, last year, Jesper Bratt had 88 points. This year, 71. Nico Hischier, about the same amount of points, but short in terms of his goals, 35. Jack had the injuries. Jack will end with more points than he had last year. But, you know, overall, there are a lot of guys. You talked about Stefan Nason being the only player who was on the Devils roster when Pavel Zacha made his NHL debut back in the day. Yeah. He didn't have the kind of year that the Devils had hoped for. Paul Cotter didn't have the kind of year that the Devils had hoped for. Those guys, you know, if they're not going to do it, you can only lean on the big guys so much. You got to get some help.
Well, and that's right. If we're going to be brutally honest, our big guys are in good shape. You know, and they're talking like they want to come back and be at the top of their game. And, you know, Jack's point, Bratt's points, if Jack doesn't get hurt, his points are going way up too, not just Jack. Mm-hmm. But you need somebody, I'll say it again, I don't know who it is, but Jack needs a third person on his line that's rock solid, that can score, take pucks, boom, score when he gives them the pass. You just need that. Now, that's not easy to get that guy. But I have been around and I've seen when you do get, they can't. I wish they could get 5 or 6 impact players, the Devils, and they won't be able to. But I'm really hoping they get 2, maybe 3. Then we got something going next year.
And we'll look for some growth from Arseny Gritsuk. We'll see what Lenny Hamanaho learns off of this year and see if he can develop a little bit more offense. I mean, he started off with a bang and then dropped off dramatically. So those are 2 guys that you hope that Luke Hughes comes back healthy, and you hope that he becomes the dominant player. I know there are a lot of numbers, and I believe them, that show the Devils have a tremendous amount of offensive zone time when he's on the ice, and all that's good, but he needs to score some more goals.
He does, Matty, and we've seen players. We're seeing Geeky. I mean, he's getting a little bit older. Pavel Zacha. It took him a while to get to be the big-time player they are now. And so I'm not putting extra pressure on Luke. But the reality is, because I don't think Dougie Hamilton's going to be back next year, Luke has got to come up and raise his game. And I suspect he will, but he needs to do that.
All right, we've waited, and now let's go downstairs live to Sheldon Keefe.
This morning, and you talked about the pride that you've had within your staff and your team making this push and staying competitive until the end. How much are you taking away from maybe these last 25 games and focusing on that here right now?
Yeah, obviously not going to take much good out of this one here tonight, but Yeah, I do think, since coming back from the Olympics here, I think we've done some good things. The guys have kept a good attitude and worked, all season long. Kind of coming back in games has been a challenge, and we've done a bunch of that that shows, some fight and spirit and all those kind of things, which, given the circumstances, I think is a good, positive, and healthy thing. So that's what I'll take away from this little portion. But obviously, that we're in this situation because of the season as a whole. So there's a lot to digest there.
Well, Sheldon, just to build on that, I've been on some teams where you have these seasons not good, and I know you've never had a season like this. But how is encouraging? And I know you didn't hear from them, but Jack, Brad, and Nico, they all really felt this season in their gut. Like, this one hurt, like, because of the expectation. They're young, they're coming up. They've never really had a season where they had to deal with this. You start well, and then you have adversity, and then it just goes sideways. So, at least from a coach, how encouraging is to hear that those guys really feel this one?
Yeah, I mean, listen, they're getting older, so they wanna get this figured out. I think they have kind of been through it, right? I mean, they had an outstanding season a few years ago, and kind of felt like they'd arrived and were going, and then all of a sudden the bottom falls out there. And I think we take some steps last season, certainly to get into the playoffs, and take a step backwards again this season here. So it's a matter of getting those kind of things sorted out to find a level of consistency and sustainability in all of our game. But there's no question those guys care, and they want to keep building, and they want to find it. But we're obviously not nearly where we need to be.
What is your message to your group now going into the summer, given what you guys have been through here?
Well, I mean, I'm assuming we're going to talk again tomorrow, Amanda. So, you're not going to have many questions left to ask me tomorrow. But, yeah, I talked to the team after the games, just kind of similar to what I just went through here. I'm not taking much away from this one. It's a tough game here tonight for lots of reasons. It's game 82 for us, for a team that's, filled with disappointment, and we come into a building where one of the best teams on home ice in the NHL is playing, pretty much their full group, and, they're playing still for some standing and preparing for playoffs, and I think that difference showed early in the game. So you're not going to take much from this one here, as disappointing as it is. It's, I did like the competitive spirit of the team, despite some challenging circumstances here in the last, month, 6 weeks or so. When it could have been tough to come to the rink, and it could have been, pretty miserable, given the circumstances. But I thought the guys, played some good hockey, played hard hockey, kept a little bit of joy in the process. So we want to capture that, but also not lose sight of what got us in this situation, and that has to change and get better.
Thank you, Sheldon.
Sheldon Keefe departs his final post-game news conference, and his future. We don't know what that is. He's got time on his contract, that's for sure, but there are changes coming, and I don't know if he's been given any assurances. We haven't heard, so he's got to be wondering what the new boss is going to want to do.
Yeah, and I respect our interviewers not to ask the question, because I don't think he knows. You know what I mean? So you're just asking the obvious. But here's the thing, Matty, I'm not going to couch it. I don't worry about Jack Hughes coming back with a big season next year. Nico Hischier, Jesper Bratt, even Timo Meier. Do I worry about those guys? No. But I do worry who is going to surround them. Because you can talk all about, they were great. They worked hard down the stretch. Well, of course, these guys are like upper echelon players, right? They're pros. But what we're all wondering, and we have no way of knowing, what is going to be the new support for them that is going to help them to not only grow themselves, but to excite those new players. And that's what we need. It's not about them. It's about, I want to know who's coming in, and Matty, we don't know that yet, so we can't really talk about it.
No, what we can say is that the Devils have made the playoffs twice in now their last 8 years.
Good
and
point.
Sheldon referenced the big year, 22-23, most wins, 52 in team history. The excitement of eliminating the Rangers, yes, losing to Carolina, but the thought that, okay, all those high draft choices are paying dividends. And then they lose. Lindy gets the next season. Lindy gets fired. Sheldon comes in. They get to the first round, but as Jack said, it's not like they were a wagon last year.
No.
They got in late after, basically from Christmas on, they kind of just rode this wave of win 1, lose 1, win 2, lose 3, win 3, lose 2. I mean, it was just, that's the way it was. And, so there's something else that's going on too.
Yeah, exactly, Matty. When I say the Devils, I don't talk about those players. I'm not worried about those guys. Those guys will be hungry. They got skill. They'll come and they'll let it all hang out and do all they can. I don't worry about that. But if you're rebuilding a team, and that's what we keep talking about, that new general manager, I'm telling you, Matty, I would say at the end of next year, when we are talking and wrapping it up, it will be a lot about what he was able to do. That's the bottom line. And we're all optimistic, and I'll go with that, but I'm not going to talk about what might happen. I don't worry about Jack and Nico and Jesper and Timo. And, the core is there. I mean, Cody Glass had a good year, and he'll be back, and he's a good third liner. And, the defense, I don't know what's going to happen there. Would people think defense was good enough this year? That's another aspect that you gotta come to grips with, one way or the other. Mm-hmm. And so I think there's going to be some changes in personnel. And you know what, Matt? I would say, without naming anyone, I think it has to happen.
Yeah, no doubt. You can't rewind this, that's for sure. You can't bring this group back. You've got to make some changes. It has started already with Tom Fitzgerald's departure, and it's the new man on the block or new men on the block or new people. Maybe it's a man and a woman. Who knows? Whatever it is, they have some work to do, and there'll be changes beyond that as well. Well, it's by far the longest post-game of the season, but we had detailed answers from Jack and from Jesper, from Nico, and of course we waited to hear from head coach Sheldon Keefe, so we thank you for staying with us.
But let's just say this. We thank you for staying with us, but if this doesn't sum up the season, nothing does. The plane's broken. We got a bus back to New Jersey from Boston, Matty, and is that not kind of the way the season has gone?
And that is, in fact, the case. At any rate, we will conclude our coverage of the 25-26 season. No game to follow. The schedule will be released over the summer. We look forward to an 84-game schedule next year, and all the action of that season, and hopefully an exciting one, will be heard on the Devils Hockey Network.